What if I told you that, according to Rumi, one single flaw can cut you off from divine grace, turn blessing into hardship, and even set the world on fire? Not greed, not ignorance, but something far more subtle. Rumi calls it the loss of spiritual discipline. Stay with me because these verses are not about ancient prophets. They're about us. Hello and welcome back. Today, we enter one of the most quietly powerful passages in the first book of Rumi's Mathnawi, verses 78 to 93, where Rumi speaks not loudly, not dramatically, but with the calm authority of someone who has seen what arrogance does to the soul. Let's walk through these verses line by line and allow Rumi to speak not only to the mystics of his time, but to the modern mind we inhabit today. From God we seek the grace of spiritual discipline, for the undisciplined are cut off from the Lord's grace. Rumi begins with a prayer, not for knowledge, not for power, but for spiritual discipline, right conduct, inner courtesy, reverent self-restraint. In Sufi thought, spiritual discipline is not mere etiquette. It is knowing your place before truth. The absence of spiritual discipline doesn't merely make someone rude, it severs the flow of grace. You may be intelligent, you may be skilled, but without humility, even brilliance dries up at its source. The undisciplined harm not only themselves, they ignite a fire across the entire horizon. Here Rumi expands the scope. Lack of inner discipline is contagious. One person's arrogance can poison families, communities, even entire institutions. This is not moral exaggeration. It is a psychological and spiritual truth. The consequences of unchecked ego ripple outward, disrupting the flow of grace for all. A single unchecked ego in leadership can burn entire systems to the ground. The heavenly table once descended from the sky. Without effort, without trade, without argument. This is divine sustenance, grace given freely, without transaction. No bargaining, no entitlement. But Rumi is precise. This grace flows only as long as inner discipline is preserved. The moment restraint gives way to demand, the table is withdrawn. Some things in life, trust, love, inspiration, arrive freely, but vanish the moment reverent self-restraint is lost. Yet among the people of Moses, a few, lacking discipline, asked, "Where are the onions and lentils?" The problem was not hunger. It was lack of spiritual discipline and discontent. They measured divine generosity by their personal cravings rather than recognizing grace. How often do we receive abundance and still complain, blinded by our own cravings? So the heavenly table was withdrawn, and they were left to toil, plow, shovel, and sickle. Grace is not taken away as punishment. It is withdrawn when spiritual discipline is lost or no longer recognized. What was once effortless becomes exhausting. Burnout often begins when awareness of grace and gratitude quietly fades. Then Jesus interceded, and God once again sent down the table, laden with blessings. Mercy returns through intercession, through humility standing in for the arrogant. Grace is not lost forever, but it returns only when spiritual discipline is recognized. The heavenly table became a burden and a liability. The moment they said, "Send down upon us the table." This is one of Rumi's most subtle reversals. The Midah, the divine table, was originally pure gift, unasked, unclaimed, uncalculated. But when it was demanded, even in the language of prayer, it changed its nature. What descends freely as grace turns into obligation the moment it is claimed as a right. The table did not change. The posture of the heart did. This single shift, from receptivity to entitlement, transforms blessing into burden. Rumi is teaching a profound spiritual law. The way we ask determines what we receive. Grace survives only in humility. The moment expectation replaces reverence, the gift becomes weight. How often do we turn miracles into pressures, love into demand, work into resentment, faith into transaction, simply by forgetting how to receive? Yet again, the insolent abandoned spiritual discipline and gathered leftovers like beggars. They hoarded what was meant to be trusted. This is the psychology of fear, the loss of inner discipline that mistakes abundance for scarcity. How often do we stockpile validation, wealth, attention, because we no longer trust grace to return? Jesus pleaded, "This will endure. It will not diminish upon the earth." He reminds them, divine generosity is not fragile, but fear, joined with mistrust, makes us act as if it is. Suspicion and greed. Before the table of the king are disbelief. Rumi delivers a severe judgment. Greed is not a flaw of appetite, it is a failure of trust. Anxiety often masks itself as being realistic. From those beggar-faced ones, blinded by greed, the door of mercy was shut against them. Rumi shifts the focus from action to inner vision. They are called beggar-faced not because they lack provision, but because greed has distorted how they see. Greed does not begin in the hands, it begins in the eyes. They were surrounded by abundance, yet perceived themselves as poor. Because of this inner blindness, the gate of mercy did not close as punishment, it closed by consequence. Mercy requires receptivity, and greed, by its nature, cannot receive. The moment the heart insists on taking, it loses the capacity to be given to. How often do we appear successful, yet live with the inner posture of scarcity, and then wonder why grace feels distant? The clouds withhold their rain because charity is withheld. And from adultery, plague spreads across the lands. Rumi presents a moral universe where ethics, society, and nature are intertwined. Private actions are never isolated, they generate collective consequences. Social collapse does not begin in politics, it begins in personal ethics. Whatever darkness and grief comes upon you, know it arises from lost reverence. This is not blame, it is diagnosis. Suffering often follows when inner reverence and discipline quietly exit our lives. Whoever abandons reverent discipline on the path of the beloved becomes a robber of true seekers, unworthy of the way. Without reverent discipline, even spirituality becomes ego-driven. Not every seeker is a servant. Through reverent discipline, the heavens became radiant. And through reverent discipline, angels remained pure. Reverent discipline is cosmic order. It harmonizes the inner world with the outer universe. Through lost reverent discipline, the sun was eclipsed. And through arrogance, Azazel fell. This is the fall of Satan, not from disbelief, but from the refusal to honor reverent discipline. Knowledge without humility is the most dangerous form of ignorance. Rumi is not teaching mere politeness. He is teaching spiritual weight and reverence. Reverent discipline is what keeps blessing a blessing. It is what allows grace to remain. And in a world obsessed with entitlement, Rumi's message is radical. Reverent discipline is power. If this reflection spoke to you, like the video, it helps this wisdom reach others. Subscribe if you want more deep, living encounters with Rumi. And tell me in the comments, where do you think modern life has forgotten reverent discipline the most? Until next time, walk gently and keep your heart attentive.